In today's video, let's talk about my top 5 bass fishing baits of the 2022 season. Happy New Year, everyone. It's crazy that it's already 2023. I feel like we were just getting on the water on Lake St. Clair early last season. The year went by so fast. I got to fish with a lot of people that I hadn't fished with in a couple of years. Got to see some people, got to meet some new people. Just a really overall good season. Caught a bunch of big fish, had a lot of really cool experiences. A lot of cool memories. But in today's video, I want to share with you guys my top 5 baits of the 2022 season. So the way we're going to break this down is sort of by season, but these are really the baits that I fished pretty much throughout the season to have a lot of success. Now let's start out with the very first trip of the season. We went to Lake St. Clair, and this is something I like to do, just kind of knock the rust off. This year proved to be a little bit interesting. The water was cold. We had basically just gotten there when there was a huge cold front pushing through, and so it made the fishing a little bit tougher. And a bait that played quite a bit throughout the season for me was a Berkley Stunna. This is the Stunna 112+1 model. This is the deep diving version. Basically, I switched between the regular 112, which is the shallower diving model, and the 112+1. On Lake St. Clair, it really started keying us in, and it was really interesting to see the way that this bait, the 112, was catching bass when no other jerkbaits would play. And I'm not saying that to sell a product. I'm saying that because it's really true. My buddy Nathan was throwing a megabass, he was throwing a jackal, he was throwing a strike king, and he would catch some fish, but a Stunna would catch 5 to 10 to 1 over those other jerkbaits. And there's something about this bait that just makes it really unique in the water, especially the regular 112 model. The 112 model has a very loose action. So what I mean by that is when you hit this bait, instead of a really refined megabass that kind of stops and stalls and is very, very refined, this bait is a little bit sloppier. It's a little bit looser. So when you stop this bait, it has a little secondary shimmy. Now, one of the main differences that I want to mention for you guys, and maybe you guys don't know this about the 112 jerkbait, is naturally out of the box, the regular 112 has a super slow sink. This makes this particularly effective when you're using it for live scope, but also makes it effective when you want to get it down to a certain depth. It also, in my opinion, has a lot more action than the 112+1. Now, where I'm going to fish the 112+1 is anytime that I'm fishing around wood, or anytime I want it to deflect off cover. Having a bait like the 112+1 with that bigger lip and a bait that doesn't sink quite as fast allows you to fish it around cover because it does want to deflect a little bit better than the standard 112. Some of my favorite colors are going to be the MF Tennessee Shad, which is what I showed you guys here. Obviously that perch color, and I really like that Stone Cold color. It almost glows in the water, and that's a bait that I like to fish when it's overcast or when the water has some color in it. The rod that I'm throwing it on is a TFO 7-foot medium cranking rod. Now I mixed in the regular tactical bass as well as the elite, and this is a brand new Resolve tactical 7-foot cranking rod, and I like that 7-foot cranking rod because it has a deep bend into the blank, so it allows those fish to stay pinned on a small treble hook. So that's my overall jerkbait setup, but that Stunna and really a jerkbait in general were key to early season success. Bait number 2 is one that you guys saw play a ton if you guys watched the Seeking Bronze series this year. And what I'm talking about is a little hair jig. But this is a bait that catches so many fish. This is a bait when those fish start to push up into that shallow water. Anytime those fish are cruising shallow flats, a hair jig is really, really effective. Now, I tie my own hair jigs. I'll have a couple linked down in the description below that you guys can go check out. But I use a Do It Midwest Finesse head, and this is 3/32 of an ounce. The colors that I'm going to fish are typically just straight black or a brown color anytime I think they're keying in on mayflies. Now, one of the other keys, and one thing I like to do, is take a small piece of max scent, and this is a Berkley hitworm, about an inch section or inch and a half section, and thread it up onto that bait. So when this bait comes through the water, this hair actually cushions way down. It gets really, really small. So it's a very small profile bait. This is going to help provide some bulk to the bait, not only to give it a little bit bigger presentation in the water, but also allow you to cast it a little bit further. Another big thing about a hair jig is really kind of being able to get distance between you and that bait. Have the most distance between you to give those fish the best opportunity to eat that bait without actually feeling your presence. And the way that I like to do that is by using a long rod. I got the opportunity to help design this rod for TFO. It's the TFO Tactical Elite 7.6 medium light, and you can launch that thing way away from the boat. This is a rod that you guys need to have if you want to be serious about hair jig fishing. It has the perfect action, it has the perfect tip to let that bait cast without having too much vibration and actually take away from the casting distance. And then I'm throwing it on a 3000 size 5 speed gear ratio spinning reel, 8-pound test braided line to a really long 6-pound test fluorocarbon leader. The key to this presentation, stealth. The key is getting the bait away from you, and so by using a long rod and a 3/32 ounce hair jig, slowly reeled through the column, you can catch giants. We caught over 30 pounds in 3 days on a little hair jig. It's a 7-pounder, 2 6-pounders, another almost 6. It was a lot of fun. A hair jig catches so many big fish, and if you guys haven't thrown it, I would definitely recommend picking one up or picking some up before next season. Bait number 3 I don't currently have tied on, but if you guys have ever smallmouth fished, I'm sure you've fished or heard of a drop shot. So this is going to be no surprise, but a max scent flatworm caught an incredible amount of fish for me this year. And there's really 2 colors. These are the only 2 colors that I needed to keep in the boat this season. The first one is brownback, which is a phenomenal bait fish or goby imitation. It's a phenomenal color in generally all water clarities. But the one that really stood out is Mango Magic. If you guys have never fished Mango Magic, it's a slightly off-color green pumpkin with some yellow or goldish and purple flake. And my misconception was it always had to be a dirty water color or a color you fish when it's overcast. But this is a bait that will play anytime you're fishing around perch and anytime that you're fishing around gobies. If you have either of those in your mix and your bass are keying in on them, this is a phenomenal color. If you guys haven't fished the Mango Magic color, you need to pick some up. It's a great color that catches giant bass. A bait that kind of surprised me this season, and a bait that I caught a ton of big fish on, is a little finesse jig. And the way I learned about this was actually through Travis Manson. I listened to Smallmouth Crush podcast, and he had a guest on, and they talked about the power of a small finesse jig. In comparison to any other jig you've fished, it may not seem like it in this video, but it's a small presentation. And this is a Beast Coast OW Sniper half-ounce finesse football jig. It is a football head, so it does have that rounded head shape, which comes through rock really effectively, but it also comes through light grass, perch grass extremely effectively. And what I like about this jig is the hook that's on this. You can fish it either on a bait casting setup or a spinning rod, which I kind of played back and forth between. Now the way that I'm fishing this, I have a full detailed breakdown that'll be linked up here in the corner or down in the description. You guys can go check out, but it caught me giants. I could throw this in places that I would normally fish a Ned rig and maybe catch a couple fish and catch giants and catch numbers of bass fishing this thing. The bait I have in the back of here is a little max scent Little Trooper. I fished a little General. I fished a Venture Lures, Double Tail Grub, anything with a smaller presentation profile. My buddy Nathan, he crushed me on just a standard Z-Man TRD, but just your standard Ned rig style trailer on the back catches big fish. The rod that I throw this on, as I mentioned, was mixed between a bait casting setup and a spinning rod. Towards the end of the season, as I was getting ice in my guides, I switched it up to a medium action spinning rod, but most of the year it was a 7.3 medium heavy TFO Tactical Elite rod. I can fish it on my standard jig rod and have success. It's a stout hook. It's a bait you can really lean on these fish. You can make a long cast, and they bite this bait really well. And to kind of round out the top 5 is going to be a small body swim bait. And I fished this in a couple different situations, and I fished it in a couple different manners, but this one here is on a little football head jig. This is a bait that is phenomenal in cold water when you get that bait down on bottom and you can really count rocks. Another way that I fished this was actually up in the column this spring, fishing for suspended smallmouth. Similar places that I fished that little hair jig, you could take an 1/8 ounce Diner Shiner Do-It Molds head, put a small 3.3 inch power swimmer, but it's a really effective approach. Just a small body, less than 3.5 inch swim bait, caught some giant smallmouth for me. And those were my top 5 baits of the 2022 season. I'm really curious to know what you guys fished and caught fish on this year. So let me know down in the comment section down below. I'm always interested to hear what baits you guys had a lot of success with and baits that maybe I'll need to pick up in the 23 season. Now, if you guys enjoyed this video, I think you'd enjoy this one right here. Click this video to check it out. Hit that subscribe button if you're not already. Check out all the products that I mentioned in today's video, linked down in the description below, along with my podcast that comes out every Thursday at 6 a.m. Thank you guys for sticking along for the ride. Take care, tight lines. God bless. Pursue your passion.